Good morning.
Good morning.
We are going to go ahead and get started. If we have legislators that join us late, we'll just usher them up to the front. Representative Pam Curtis did send her regards. She is sick this morning. She has caught whatever's going around the state house. So she sends her regrets. And I know she's always a fountain of information. So, Representative Oropeza, you're it today.
I don't have answers.
So good morning. Welcome to the main library. Thank you for joining us for this legislative coffee presented by the League of Women Voters and the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library. I am Laura Lovelace with the main library. This morning we will hear from our Kansas Legislature, but please note that all Wyandotte County legislators were invited to participate. For those of you online, we're offering closed captions. If you do not see the captions, please click the CC button at the bottom of the Zoom window and choose Show Captions. A link to the full form guidelines will be placed in chat, but I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items before we begin. Number one, and most important, there are coffee and donuts in the back. Please help yourself. Second most important, the restrooms are down the hallway. This is an educational, nonpartisan event for the general public, legislators. We're going to only have 3 minutes, but we're going to let Ms. Oropeza have the floor. And then she can take as long as she wants to answer our questions. We will extend the time as conversation allows. And this legislative coffee is being recorded. So the partner organizations co-sponsoring this forum firmly believe that democracy works best when citizens are informed and active. We hope this virtual coffee provides you the opportunity to learn more about your legislators and what is happening in the State House. Having said that, there is a lot going on in our world, both federally and locally. Primarily today, we are going to ask our representative to answer questions about state issues. If at the end there is time and she's willing to try to tackle questions about either local or federal issues, we are happy to do that. We will begin with Representative Oropeza telling us what's going on in the state capitol, and then we'll move on to question and answer. My first comment, though, is what happened yesterday?
Is this on?
It should be
on. Well, there's a very nice article in the KC Reflector if you'd like to look at that. It did happen in the row I am in. It was a very interesting turn of events yesterday on the floor, but it was handled quite quickly, and things were addressed. Trying to be as politically correct as possible. The disruption came to our side of the aisle. So just so you know, that that side sits the 37 Democrats, and the disruption came to us. So just so you understand that, there are things that are called out on the floor on a routine basis because of how inappropriate it is, how some legislators are treated on the floor when they ask questions. And that was once again done. And people don't like being called out on the floor when they act inappropriately or when they're not doing us justice or democracy for all constituents. And when they are not basically answering questions about the bills that need to be answered, right? We all don't sit in the same committees every day. I mean, we sit in the same committees, but we're not in every committee at every hour. There's several committees going at the 9 o'clock slot, the 1:30 slot, and the 3:30 slot. So we have to distribute the people. So when there are questions asked, I think that's the very least people could do. If they're bringing that policy and bringing that bill, they should be able to answer those questions. They should know the ramifications in and out of how that will look for the state of Kansas, not only our districts, but for the state ultimately.
So for those of you, if you have not read that article, go look it up. It's quite interesting. There was quite the delay in the House procedure. The Sergeant at Arms, I think, had to be called. And so, it's just a contentious world there.
It is. But at the same time, things that or issues that need to be brought forward are being asked, are being displayed for people to see. And that's the most important thing is that when we're there, we're asking the appropriate questions and we want to have those answers. Like, what does that mean? And we want those people who are pushing these policies and these bills to answer those questions so that everybody understands what is going on at the state level.
Thank you. So do you want to tell us what committees you're on and what work you're working on?
Sure. I am on legislative modernization. I am on health and human services. I am also sit on social services budget. Those are the 3 committees I'm on.
Okay. So can you comment on possible revenue possibilities from the state to help WICO? And the commenter says, I know that LABTR is out. Are there any other opportunities?
Well, there were until a vote yesterday, and I meant to grab my paperwork on that, but I was obviously running late. There was a tax incentive credit that could be used by any county in the state for developers to come in and build affordable housing. They have now brought a bill forward that will get rid of that. So, I mean, that was a possibility. We have in social services budgets, there are a few organizations that have come up in regards to doing things here local. There's WIJO Care, which is one that I know about. There are several others. There's a possibly helping with the homeless down in more western Kansas. But then what that in turn does is that helps people from kind of moving around and moving on. They have wraparound services. And so that was kind of like to help with the homeless population down that way. So then they're just not spread throughout the state. So there are little things that are going on, but unfortunately nothing that I can see of substance. And that's why usually I like other people here because they see other things, other ways, other ideas and other things. I know for locally, they're not funding SPED. So it's $10 million and that's it. The governor or the board asked for 82 million. The governor said 72. The committee said 30, and then it went down to 10. So that's what you can, that locally, I don't know how 10 million is going to spread throughout the state. So there are those concerns as well. There's a lot of shuffling of money, I know, within schools that they pulled out of their budget to make sure that type of education is addressed to ensure those children are not left behind in our public educational system. So they're trying their best, but I'm not, like I said, I don't see anything of any significance personally.
So can you tell us about your vote on Senate Bill 63? Well, actually, this was
in regards to what vote?
like all 3. It says all 3. When did you vote? What was your vote on Senate Bill 63, which you wouldn't have voted on?
No, we did. And
You
actually, we voted on Senate Bill 63. I was a no. That is a very harsh bill against gender affirming care.
You read the question as I wrote it.
All 3. Why did you vote against women on Senate Bill 63?
Here we go.
Vote against women. I don't feel that vote was against women. I felt like it was my vote was in a perspective of a healthcare provider. And if you read that bill in any depth, you'll see that they've extended the legality issues to be passed at ages of beyond 2 years, which is currently in the state. And they have also included jail time for healthcare providers. They have included that you can sue somebody up to 10 years and jail time with that for practicing their specialty and doing their background and education of providing medical care, regardless of whether you agree with that medical care or not. That's something that I will never get in the middle of. That is not an area in which I've ever practiced, nor is it an area that's ever touched me in my healthcare profession. I'll be real honest. I had to go to Topeka to find out about what gender affirming care was. And then there I went to learn and figured out what the guidelines were, what the recommendations were. I have spoken out against these types of horrific bills because it puts people who do not have this education, who do not have this background in this type of care in the middle and making decisions for those that they have no idea what that family is going through or what those patients and family members and healthcare providers are dealing with. So for me, it was, I didn't vote against women. In fact, I voted for people to have the rights and the ability to have to get care they feel like they need and access to care they feel like they need and have all the information available at their fingertips.
Thank you. Where do we stand on the 3-day grace period bill?
We have not seen that come across yet in the House. There was a video that was just leaked from meetings that were held over the summer. They are coming after everything to do with voting. They want to disenfranchise. They want to ensure that, at least according to the video, who's the chairman of the current elections committee, they want to make sure that election day is just election day. Who is they? Republicans in general. And the chairman of that committee is Representative Proctor in Leavenworth. So if anybody's not on social media, I would definitely get with somebody who does have access to social media. Loud Light is a great organization. Was on elections for the last 2 sessions. Not this one obviously currently, but they came in and there were bills that they would just come in and speak about, like they didn't understand like why is this and why is that. And I appreciate people who come and speak to bills and policy as to pros and cons, and always willing to try to find that middle ground and not to disenfranchise voters. Because it's not only the 3-day grace period, it is also ballot boxes, early voting. There's a lot that we do that just helps people get to the polls and gives their voice, which is should be just a very basic right in the United States.
Right. Thank you. So what can be done to lower property taxes?
Wish we had actually worked on that for the last, since January 20th, since we came, I'm sorry, we come in the 20th, I can't remember. Since we came in, 13th, sorry, January 13th. I wish we could be working on that. I personally have not seen anything other than to take tax incentives away. We have not addressed that elephant in the room. We have, there is, as far as I can see, anything that's coming forth that would potentially help people with their property taxes. As I have seen, we did have a bill introduced by the Democrats, which normally those bills don't get hearings or get, any type of look at, that would help with property taxes and increasing the valuation from 75,000 to 110, and getting everybody a little bit of relief that way. There was a cap that was passed in the Senate. We have not seen that on the House side. From my understanding, we will not be working that. I would encourage the League of Women Voters to get with Chris Courtright, and really review what that would mean. That would be devastating to the young people in the state of Kansas. It'd be great for all of us that own our houses, and as we get older, that's wonderful for us. But that cost has to be offset somewhere, and that's with young people. And we need young people to stay here and want to buy houses and want to live in Kansas. So, and he did have a few ideas, but again, it's if there is a super majority, and if they want to hear any of that or really want to work for the state of Kansas, in my opinion.
And just a reminder, if you have a question, write it down on a piece of paper. A volunteer will pick it up for you. If you're online, submit a question in the chat and we'll try to get to that. So can you discuss the current House Resolution 5006 related to gun rights?
Not when we did. It's not when we were supposed to hear yesterday. That went through a separate committee. That is already in that is already a right. But now they wanted to ensure that it's really, really, really a right. And to have people really, 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 and it's an HCR, correct?
Yes.
Yes, it's an HCR. So that is to ensure that that is a really, really right for people to have guns and ammunition. And even though nobody is going away from that, nobody has ever said anything about that. When things come across, it's always somebody's trying to take away their guns. That is never the point of any type of policy that's ever come across. It's more about safety. And when people get upset about that, and it's usually the people that were, those are the people who, a lot of people are very safe with their guns, but obviously there are people who are not very safe with their guns, who don't do the appropriate storage, who don't do things that, gun owners should do. It's more about making sure that is done. So for that, it's just and for that with the HCRs, those are going to ended up being on our ballots to be voted for. So, doesn't cost a lot to have an election, but it is a lot of work for everybody. And that does come out of your property taxes. So, I kind of interesting to me what we're spending money on, what we're spending property taxes on, what we are, how we are using things to then have people vote on them. And, but then at the same time trying to disenfranchise voters. So for me, it's never been about taking away gun rights. It's more about responsible gun ownership and having some more guardrails around that. And if you're a responsible gun owner, that should make you no mind. That should have no problem. You should have no problem with that because you're already doing the right thing and you're already doing a responsible keeping of your guns.
So what issues have you heard from your constituents about the most this session?
Oh, the most this session. I've heard about property taxes. Everybody is about property taxes. Everybody wants to be able to go to the grocery store and be able to afford groceries. Those are the most things that I have personally heard about. And then I've heard other things in regards to the undocumented and making sure that we're treating people with dignity and that we are truly only deporting people who are criminals, and along those lines, just making sure that we're treating everybody with dignity.
So how will Kansas be affected if the federal Department of Education is closed?
That's interesting because we're not funding them now. So I don't know that we would. I'm not sure that we'd have the money to actually have public education. I don't personally sit on that committee, and I wish Representative Wynn was here because that's where she sits and she would have those answers. I think if that goes, it's surprising how much is federally matched here in the state of Kansas and how much we draw down from the federal government. So life will look very, very different for everybody. And I think it would be coming to the point of where if you're already sending your kids to private schools, you have that money to do that. What about everybody else who doesn't?
Exactly. There's a thought, though, that the funding will go away, just the administration goes away. Is that not true?
That's a federal level, and until it happens, I don't know that I don't know what will happen until it's actually done.
My understanding is they administer the funding part. And so if they're gone, who does that?
And the last thing I saw, they wanted to put it under the Department of Commerce. But it still has to be it still has to be legislated in Congress. So it's not going to be signed a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And the districts are telling us that the legislator is actively working on this. So to me, it's very interesting that you say you don't know.
When you say that, who's telling you that the district is actually
I
working?
mean, I'm a SPED student and I asked this question.
Oh, the school district. Okay.
In her meeting and said, what is going to happen? And they're like, don't worry about it. The Kansas legislature is actively working on this.
Working on the dismantling of the
Federal Department of Education. They said they have a plan. Don't worry about it. We'll be fine.
I mean,
And
without
that's why I'm
knowing,
here. I'm like,
without knowing who that legislator is to be able to ask.
Yeah, if you give me a name, I can have them follow up with you.
no. This was the school district representative. We were in an IEP meeting. It's the administration, the IEP administration, the Gardner School District administers. She said, "Oh, don't worry about it. The state's been working on this for years." And when she says, "I don't know," I'm like, somebody.
I've not missed any meetings, nor have I not been
That's
there.
really why when I saw this, I'm like, what the hell is it? No, that's fine. That's fine. It's them, not you.
I'm just like, not that I know. Yeah. Now I really wish Representative Wynn was here.
Yeah, there's an email tomorrow.
Okay. And if there isn't a definitely, I would direct it to Representative Wynn.
Oh, I'll call the administrator
Okay.
tomorrow. I'll call him and say, "Oh, you should mention that."
Are you saying the Gardner School District?
My granddaughter goes to Gardner.
Oh,
Yes. So we were in an IEP meeting. The school district administrator was in the meeting because I cause a lot of problems. And I said, "What is gonna happen?" Because I have a low impact student. You in high need of that service. And she's like, "Don't worry about it. The Kansas legislator has been working on this for years."
I've been there for years and I haven't seen anything personally.
I have at the back of the room a contact list for all of our senators and representatives for the state. And you're welcome to contact both Dr. Lynn and Miss Brownlee Page, our school board members, and have a vested interest in educational issues.
Yeah.
And so they're good people to ask.
Oh, no, it's not you guys. It's them.
But
All right.
I found, you don't. I found your comment very interesting that they plan on shuffling in under commerce.
That was yesterday.
That was yesterday. So what that is very interesting to me because usually commerce is about bringing, at least for the state level, it's about bringing in businesses.
Mhm.
It's about bringing in businesses and having businesses from our perspective, provide jobs, provide labor jobs, building and all of those things, jobs for the community. But then from an educational standpoint,
Right.
is it a big leap to that this will all be private and somebody's going to be making money off of this ultimately?
Department of Health and Human
Yeah, I've
Services,
heard
which
HHS.
originally did it before the Department of Education.
I think as a federal employee sitting there involved in the current chaos, I think it's probably clear no one knows yet.
Yeah, no, definitely does no. But it's interesting to, where it could be potentially jumping.
Yeah.
Do you know how far federally funded the Kansas state schools are? Are they funded like till the end of September or are they funded until 2029?
Our budgets go out. We added a few things for 2026, but then there's always another budget, 2026 and 2027. It depends on what you look at. Unfortunately, I don't sit on the education.
That's okay. Just
for that.
Just
I can tell you from
unfortunately, I'm very well connected on Kansas stuff. I do a lot of national stuff, so I'm like, oh, I better bring up speed.
And that's the other thing I would definitely focus on here. And yes, there is a lot going on at the federal level. I would focus more on what's going on in the state.
I agree.
I wouldn't be looking at this hand. Well, this hand over here is moving.
Yeah.
To be quite honest,
That's becoming
I think
fun.
we need to make sure that we're very, very focused on what's happening at the state level.
To switch gears, do you believe that convicted felons should be able to own a gun again while the military kills and comeback heroes? You believe that convicted felons should be able to own a gun again while the military kill and comeback heroes?
I wrote a bit very quickly, question very quickly. I would have written out softer and sweeter, but I just feel I am a convicted felon, and I just feel like a quarter gram of meth I got arrested for does not keep me from 10 years later being able to own a gun when that was not a violent crime in which I ingested by myself that quarter gram of meth would have had not been taken. And I can't own a gun to protect myself now. My name is Kimberly D. Key. I'm the one that's got by the power of God, believe it or not. I've been harassed for the last 14 years. And I believe that that's the only thing I've done as a felony is a quarter gram of meth I was arrested for. Stay away as military didn't beat on. Why, I can vote now as a felon. That's good, great, wonderful. But why can't I own a gun to protect myself when my military goes and kills hundreds of people? But they don't know, they know they had no business being over there or killing.
Okay, let's let her answer.
You should have just read the first part of that question.
Yeah.
Not the second part.
Well, I'm sorry. My name's Kimberly Keith and I can have freedom of speech as well. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, me too.
I'm
That's
sorry.
good, thank you.
What am I supposed to do?
So I think you bring up a very interesting point in regards that you now have voting rights being a felon. You know what? I've never had that a question posed to me. It's always about safety and at least what we've been seeing about safety and making sure safety is appropriately applied to those people who are gun owners. That is a very very interesting take. And I understand where you're coming from. And we do expunge records and we do other things when people are and have obviously paid their time.
Right, I take
done their
advantage of
thing,
expungement.
Yeah.
But
Everything and people who have done their time coming back. I'll have to ask about that.
right, I would have liked to written all that stuff too, but I didn't
Sure.
have time.
Yeah, no.
I guess I could have written it. I didn't. I'm sorry.
I would have to ask about that.
That'd
That's
be wonderful.
another thing that
I feel the check myself.
that's an interesting question. I had never honestly ever thought about it from that perspective. But
Right.
again, right, you have to be open. You have to look at every
That's why I want to
perspective
be a jury, not just one
and what
judge.
people are looking at or looking forward to do. So I'll have to ask, and I can always send you again something that I don't tell Bed and State either. So I would have to ask those colleagues and see if that's ever even been broached or ever even been brought up. There's a lot of things that come through the House and from the Senate side that's very like, oh, I never even thought about that. But then again, we all have lived experiences, we all have different perspectives on life, and it's something to be open to and something to be looking at and to be as open and just to be open to have the knowledge to look into it further.
At this time, can you give your personal opinion?
Oh, my personal opinion, it would be something. See, I don't know what the
I mean-
ramifications are. I don't not the
Just
ramifications
your personal opinion.
about it
Do you
would be
think it should
something
be
I would have to look into. I don't want to say something and then not know that there are other issues that come into play to this statutes and regulations. So for me, I don't want to overspeak on something that I don't know exactly anything about.
Okay. They need more time to think about it to be.
Well, no, not necessarily more
Educated.
time to think
Thank
about it. I don't have to think about what are already in statutes and regulations and what other potential conflicts there might be, but not be able to rattle those off in the back of my head.
Right, but opinion is not
So-
statute or policy, it's just an opinion at this point. I think
She's
after
good.
you've
Thank
done your
you.
time, you should be able to own a gun.
We're gonna switch gears here a little bit. Do you know what happened with the ad valorem tax that was collected for years when property tax exceeds a percentage?
Okay. Sorry. But I can, if you want to get me these questions, I can definitely make sure.
Whoever asked that, if you wanted to contact her, you're welcome
Yeah.
to do that.
And thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Good to hear that.
How do we get the video of the town hall webinar through Voter Rights Network? She's emailed, and you were on that, I guess? Okay. It's the same handwriting, I'm
That was me
guessing.
again.
Yes.
It was on January 23rd, the Wyandotte County Leavenworth.
Oh, that, I
Town
believe
hall
that's
Zoom
Connie
webinar.
Brown.
I did ask twice. So I know the person, I think she records it, it's someone else that records them. And she's tried to get it. And I'm just saying, there was a lot of discussion on that
Uh-huh.
that I think should be shared.
Okay.
You were on it too, so.
No, yeah, I was there. No, when you said, I was like, which one? Yes, no, I was there. No, absolutely. I participated, but I don't know who did the recording.
Yeah, she's tried to get it too. She said, Connie, I mean, I reached out to her twice and she's reached out to whoever did the recording. And I just know there were several people on that particular, Senator Petty and Clem and trying to remember who else. And many things were discussed and that would be nice to share with people so they know where people are seeing it.
Like today, our representatives aren't involved in the recording of it. So if you leave me your contact info, I will try to reach out to them and find an answer for you too.
Okay.
What legislation, if any, legally protects Kansans from hypnotration, non-consensual hypnosis?
I don't know of any. I don't know.
Okay, the Kansas Water Plan Strategic Implementation Plan calls for significant funding increases and has previously had bipartisan support. What chance does it have this session?
It has every chance in the world because water is life sustaining for everybody in this room, regardless of political affiliation. So, I understand it is a lot of money. This is something that the water committee has been trying to ensure that they are making more grounds in conservation. And I'm hoping it passes regardless of dollar amount, because this is something we need for not only to live as people, but food, agriculture, plants, coffee. Yeah, I read here coffee. This is something that should not ever be put in a category that costs too much, in my opinion. Because it is something that everybody needs, and it's something that touches every aspect, the economy, life, touches everything here in the state of Kansas. So I hope it goes and it goes well and they move forward with it. Those people who sit on that committee are very thoughtful and very aware of what the needs are, not only in urban Kansas, but also in rural Kansas, and ensuring that we have our farmers taken care of as well as the rest of the population of Kansas.
On a topic related to the cost of things, I know that there was a committee meeting on the capers paying out twice a month. And it did not make it out of the committee. And I'm just wondering why there's resistance. We paid into capers, those of us on capers paid twice a month for many years, but yet capers does a one payment a month. That's what they do. And, it's very hard to stretch a paycheck for an entire month period as opposed to, I just wonder, why there's resistance from capers to not change that.
Do you remember what
Representative Melton
introduced this as her bill? That's what I thought it was. I didn't understand what the I knew there was going to have a hearing about it. I hadn't heard from Representative Melton additionally as to kind of what happened. I'm not sure why there would be resistance to that, other than there may have been needing to update some systems, which
Kansas needs.
yeah, like you have to pay for it. If we're going to go forward, you have to have some money to pay for things to modernize and move forward and get with the times, which is very interesting. I didn't realize that it didn't make it out of committee. I can ask her, and if, like I said, send me that question and I can make sure it gets to Representative Melton. That way she can let you know the finer details of what's going on with that particular bill. But I mean, you make a great point.
What measures can be taken to reduce packing bills?
We would need everybody to agree to that. And personally, I would like to see bills stand on their own. It's a ridiculous amount of things that they shove, that Republicans shove together, right? They do the timeline, they say what bills are and are not going to be heard they, that is what they do. So for them to start shoving things together, and this has been openly said that maybe they'll vote for this really, really good piece of legislation, but then we're gonna tack on something that nobody likes. And then maybe they'll just vote for the whole thing. And it's always been maybe the good ways out the bad. Which to me shouldn't be the way we're making policy, shouldn't be the way Kansas is being led. We should be able to, if it has merit, it should be able to stand on its own. We should be able to make a vote up or down. And then they talk about, well, there's 700 bills. Well, then let's limit it to 5 bills that each individual representative feels is the nearest and dearest to their heart. They'll do the best for the state of Kansas. Let's do that. Other states do that. Maybe limiting to nobody from outside of the state of Kansas can offer policy or legislation in this state. Maybe you have to live and pay taxes here in order to introduce legislation.
And obviously that's input from your constituents as well. On the 5 to 10 choices.
Yeah. So it's just other things that I have heard from, I've seen other states do, but then bundling is ridiculous. We had a tax bill that had 28 different moving parts. And I am not a tax expert, so I have to lean on those people who have been doing while in addition to who actually take a real, like, that's their thing. Taxes are their thing. And explaining it to and reaching out to those people that are tax experts to really look at this and to ask somebody to look at this huge bundle of policy in a very, very short period of time is never sits well with me. And I don't think it's the transparency that we need in the state of Kansas.
So what entity distributes taxes captured by a school board through the mill tax levy?
What?
I think that answer is your city, right? So what entity distributes taxes captured by a school board through the mill tax levy?
Do the school boards collect taxes?
Well, they
I was
Probably.
it's the county
The district.
and
Others.
I'll have to
And then some through the state.
That's really.
I think
that's
like
county or.
every county has taxing entities, of which the school board is one. They determine what their mill levy is, and then the county distributes it.
It's for clarification on the last, on what we were discussing, because Board of Education is separate from the House, the Senate, Congress. Board of Education is separate. So that's what I'm getting at in clarification for the last conversation I'm saying.
okay.
So what bipartisan efforts have seen traction in the current legislative cycle? What bipartisan efforts have seen traction in the current legislative cycle?
Just began, right?
But there were a few bills that we were unanimous under. We did move the disabilities educational program that normally sits under KDADS. That was moved to the Kansas Council on Disabilities so they could really look into those educational benefits and reaching out to people or those persons who are have had a genetic diagnosis or those types of things that their children potentially will have disabilities, and that educational has been moved to a really from what I could tell a better fit to kind of pass out those types of educational and answer those questions on somebody who deals with that day in and day out. So that was one. There was an additional one of a making sure that if there were the third time abuse person that they are not released for work release. Again, kind of limiting that as well. Not have the option to do work release. There have been a few things that have been universal or bipartisan in that respect. We've done several compacts this year already. Cosmetology has a compact now, as well as physician assistants. Therapists, I believe, are also in the last compact. So there are some things universally for that to ensure that people can come here and work in Kansas. There are a few that we have done thus far.
We still have time in the session.
Yeah, yes, we do.
What are we doing to protect children on DCF and Medicaid?
Protecting them in regards to just making sure they have the benefits.
As if police officer going with case manager to the house to check on abused child, making sure that each case manager at DCF Department Children and Families has a police officer when you read on the report and you see on TV, it says never go to house without police officer, to make sure there's enough police officers. For example, the example of that, in my opinion, make sure there's police officers to go with every case manager to a place where they're scared for themselves. And then check and balance when they get back. If they're scared for themselves and there's check and balance, they need to make sure they take the police officer out there to the child and
that is
remove it
something
from the
I
house.
can ask the
Things like that.
agency kind of what they're doing or what that looks
example.
like.
In my opinion.
That is something agency driven. I don't know if we've necessarily had any policy or any bills in regards
So
to
maybe
that.
talk about it in terms of where are we with Medicaid expansion?
We have taken 2 votes on Medicaid expansion, one in the Senate and one in the House, and that has been on party lines. I believe there's only, I think there might have been 3 on the Senate side, 3 Republicans that voted for Medicaid expansion. That's it.
May I interject a question about that? When you talk about expansion, do you mean offering Medicaid to people, or do you mean expanding the services such as?
Talk about Medicaid expansion. It's about gathering in those people, expanding it to certain populations. There's about 150,000 Kansans that are kind of in this gray area that if we expanded, we could offer them services as well for Medicaid services. There's about 7,800 people in Wyandotte County alone that would benefit from Medicaid expansion. So that's what we talk about when we could expand it, like expanding the guidelines and offering it to more people who are kind of just in that really gray area.
By expanding their financial income levels and
Yes.
is more than by population.
Yes.
Does that also include accepting the federal funds that are available?
Yes. We have managed as a state to bypass almost $8 billion
Oh, wonderful.
of incentives.
Is
Since
he
we
term
haven't
limited?
expanded.
Is he term limited in any way? I mean, Kansas doesn't have term limits, but
Who's he?
is it Sutton that's so against that?
Is that a legislator?
That this is party lines.
Okay.
This has not, I sat in a committee meeting last in session 2024 in Health and Human Services where we had the actual hearing on expanding Medicaid. Proponents, opponents. We had the meeting. Only 5 people voted for that. 5 Democrats.
What is the?
Can I finish, please? 5 Democrats voted for that. Strictly party lines. Out of those 5 Democrats, you have 1 social worker and 1 nurse practitioner. 3 physicians voted no on expanding Medicaid.
Oh my gosh.
Why?
So I just want you to understand, when they say they want to expand Medicaid, they do not. I want that to make that very, very clear. When they say they're for Medicaid, they are not. And it is very evident by votes.
Because of their lack of money they get for the.
I think it's more of their, I have no idea why they don't vote for, I think it's very much party lines. And for what reason healthcare is party lines, I have no idea. But I'm just telling you, that's the way it is. When we voted on to expand it in the House for an amendment, it was voted against.
Yeah.
Party lines, again, all Democrats,
Over.
no Republicans. In the Senate, you had 9 Democrats with 3 Republicans, but other than that. And from what I understand, the physician, on this, I believe they have 1 or 2 didn't vote for Medicaid expansion. So, I mean, it's very much, it's in your hands as voters to decide what we do in this state. The way you use your vote is what is happening at the state level. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that.
Thank you.
That is going on here. The way you vote at home, the way you vote locally in your district is what is happening at the state level.
What is going on with state bond or star bonds?
Star bonds. I had heard, I haven't seen the legislation yet, but I heard they wanted to expand it.
What,
But what does that mean? Because
So star bonds are, so we came back special set. So star bonds are actually used quite, well, they've been used in Wyandotte County and quite well. And they're to, bring in, like the legend and those types of things, those types of big types of, and they give them a break to come in and help us build up the economy and do those types of things. And it's helping expanding type of, not necessarily all tourism, but businesses and those types of things. And from what I understand, and I wish Representative Curtis is here because that she has done this for so long that she knows that, or she has seen that star bonds have worked very, very well in Wyandotte County. And it's a matter of paying those off. And then the businesses stay and they, provide work and those types of things. But then the one we passed in the summer last year, this last summer, was about bringing a sports team. So for me, I was a no because I heard from my constituents they did not want to pay for that or be responsible for that in any way, shape, or form. So I have not seen it ever used in that way, but from what I understand from Representative Curtis, the star bonds that have gone through here at the local level have been done very well, have been done appropriately. They get paid off. We're done with those, and then they kind of move on and just reap those benefits. But I don't know how that would look like. But there, from what I understand, there is a bill potentially coming that could expand that, and I'm not sure if that would be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on who does those types of management and goes forward with that.
so was that my question? Did I ask for a positive, negative impact?
We define as successful in Wyandotte County for star bonds.
The reason I ask is my concern about the American Royal and how that might pick up out of the American Royal. When we lose it.
And we lose, yes. So more, so the ones I have seen has been more at a state level, and then they have the local level. So success is that you pay off your star bond, it's done, it's all done, and you continue to have that revenue generated from the elections. So that's a success. Pete, there have been local governments that have defaulted on their star bonds and they weren't able to complete them. I do not have the financials of that. I just know Wyandotte County has been successful when they've used star bonds, and it has been able. We haven't defaulted. They were paid off actually early, from what I understand, and that is considered a success. I don't have specific details about the American Royal. That is more of a local issue, and the commissioner should be able to answer your questions in regards to that.
But would that pending legislation?
Oh, with that, no, that was very specific.
Okay.
From my understanding, it was very, very specific. I didn't filter down locally.
My understanding was the Speedway was 25% star bonds. The chief stadium, they were looking at 70% star bonds. So you have to also figure the number, like what's the percentage when it gets into 70%. I mean, that's very different than the Speedway.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
NFL never pays go back to.
It's easier to pay
My
back
opinion, that you can
25%.
validate on mine.
Which I think is why my constituents asked me to vote no. So, they did not like those numbers, nor did they like that, very, well-off people were asking for, help.
Sure.
Yeah, so.
So final question, do you have any insight into the most effective way to influence our state elected officials?
I think vote. I honestly, I think that's the only way. They're all very nice people. Don't get me wrong. They're all very, very nice people. I've sat and had lunch with them. I have private conversations with them. Very, very nice, personable people. But when it comes to the vote, that is where, and somebody can be very, very nice, but when it comes line with all of your values, but as long as they're doing at least right by the county, or at least right by the state, for me, that would be kind of, you need to figure out for yourselves where that line will be drawn. And to make sure that those votes are what you see is most beneficial for us as a state and as well as the county. I just see a lot of, even the Wyandotte County delegation is mixed. There are votes against things that were definitely not for the county. And at least on the Democratic side, on the Dem side, they tell you if you're not in total agreement with the bill, or there's some issues with the bill, they say vote your district, which is very much right. We just vote our district. We vote what our people want, what our people ask us to come up here and do. So if there is a hard vote, we're never told one thing or another. We're never told we're taking you off a committee. We're taking away your ranking position. So when you see those types of things in the news, it's because they have voted against party lines and maybe they voted for their district. But I don't see that should ever be wielded against somebody who's just trying to do the right thing for their district.
I want to say thank you for manning these questions. Phenomenal, the amount of detail that we ask our legislators to know in and out. And it's just impossible for people to know every single thing going on. And I really appreciate you taking time on a Saturday to come and answer our questions. And if you want to reach out to Representative Oropeza or any of our other senators or representatives, we have the contact sheet in the back. I live and work here too. I have questions. I contact them. And it's probably the best way. Or if you're ever in Topeka, stop by their offices and say hi. We will, if we're unable to get your questions answered, we are providing a link in the chat that for those online that we will put your contact info in there. And the League and the Library will be posting a recording of this video on Facebook and YouTube. Please share them with your network of voters, and we thank you again. And so, especially when you're yeah. We have done.
Oh, thanks.
Yes. Yeah.